What currently legal thing do you expect to be illegal in the next 20 years? Data privacy violations. Hopefully. Charities spending less than 5% of the money they are donated to the cause due to big overheads. Child marriage. Hopefully those family vlog channels on YouTube. Family vlog channels. There's been many instances where families have exposed intimate inappropriate parts of a child's upbringing, and I wouldn't be surprised if there are legal cases in the future for exploitation or damages. I'd say it will be age restricted at least since the kids can't consent. Family YouTube channels. Multi-level marketing, a lot more people are seeing these for what they are. Subscription services for certain product features. It's ridiculous that one requires a sub-service to use the key fob for his/her car. Telemarketing. God, please, ban telemarketing. Government officials owning/trading individual stocks. Edit, read the post as hoping and not as legit expecting. EDIT2, I was implying use of blind trusts/broad index funds, opposed to individual stocks. I agree, it won't happen, in practice. A strong transparency law would be a step in the right direction. Commercials for drugs. Illegal in many countries already. Companies buying single-family homes, hopefully. I believe it is currently legal in 30 states for doctors to do pelvic exams on unconscious women without their consent for educational and teaching purposes. This better change soon. Edit, thank you everyone that is sharing their experiences, adding on more information, or providing additional examples of medical injustices. I definitely have been learning a lot. As someone who want to go into the medical field, there are so many new things others have brought up that I need to read into. Hopefully child beauty pageants. Revenge porn can be found all across the United States. Many states have passed laws against this, but some have yet to do so. Within the next 25 years, all states will most likely have laws against it, or there will be a federal law prohibiting it. What movie do you absolutely love, yet acknowledge is not a super well-made movie? The Replacements. Pain heals, chicks dig scars, glory lasts forever. The Underworld movies. All of them. Pure, perfect early 2000s leather-covered trash. Overboard, with Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell. Don't tell mom the babysitter's dead. The plot was so full of holes that it just stopped making sense. Once you leave that behind, it's extremely entertaining and so awesomely bad. How Rose Lindsay overlooked all of the illegal shit happening, I'll never know. Anyone remember Mystery Men? Edit, thanks for the upvotes y'all. Anaconda. Jon Voight's wink at the end? Classic. Edit, loved the sequel too. Doesn't matter, there aren't any anacondas in Borneo. Facts don't matter in these movies. 13 Ghosts. What an awesome concept, with actual lore. Oh man, do I love Congo. It's really not good. The script is hilariously terrible. There are a lot of great actors in it who seem to know what kind of movie they're in, and a few not so great actors who don't. We used to watch this with Anaconda for a When Animals Attack drunk double feature in college. Roadhouse is objectively a ridiculous movie, but I love it. Sky High. I still have real affection for Mortal Kombat, 1995, even though I admit half of the movie looks like deleted scenes from Xena Warrior Princess. Now and Then. I know it's an oversimplified gender-swapped Stand By Me and the casting choices for the adult version of the characters were a bit questionable, but goddamn I love that movie. It came out when I was close in age to the kids at a time when adventure movies featuring girls weren't super common. And the young actors, and brief appearance of Brendan Fraser, were so good. Dragonheart. Corny as hell but will always hold a special place. Demolition Man. For whatever reason, one of my local TV stations used to air this movie every Easter Sunday, so whenever I see it I remember family get-togethers at my nana's house. Plus, watching Wesley Snipes say cold as Häagen-Dazs always makes me laugh. Jumper. Germans of Reddit, what are some things you have noticed to be different between former Eastern Germans and former Western Germans? In my experience, people from the former East will try everything to fix something themselves before having it repaired or even taken a look at it by a professional because parts and new things were in such low availability in the GDR. West German girl here born in the early 90s living in an East German city with an East German boyfriend born in the 80s. Making and producing stuff yourself is huge in the East. Growing your own vegetables in the garden, pickling stuff for the winter, fixing things instead of getting something new and doing house repairs yourself. Growing up in the West, in a middle-class family, we paid people to do those things for us. Here it is considered much more normal or even important to be able to do stuff yourself and be very careful when it comes to using resources, even if you could pay for the service. I personally enjoy that change of my lifestyle a lot. It makes me feel much more connected to my environment. I was born in West Germany, close to the Dutch border in US terms of distance and close-ish in European terms of distance, a couple of years before the wall fell, but I've got friends who grew up in East Germany and of course, I've been to a couple of places. What I noticed, the people from the East are usually more relaxed with nudity. Germans are in general, but the Easterners represent that stereotype more accurately. Probably in part because there are more Catholics in the West. East German women are also more likely to work when they have kids. In general they seem a bit less uptight. But I also think these differences start to fade a bit with younger generations. With people of my parents' generation there seems to be a bit more of a perceived difference. More tolerance for stupid Aussie, Easterners, or Wessie, Westerners, jokes. Some people who grew up in the East have a lingering nostalgia for the GDR and some people who grew up in the West before the wall came down have some resentment because their tax money was used to bring the East closer to Western standards of living. That took an enormous sum of money and the East has still, 30+ years later, not quite caught up to the West. Wages, for example, are still lower on average. And I reckon Berlin and some other bigger cities push up the average by quite a bit. If this is still the case in the rural regions in the East, but a couple of years ago there was a lot of talk about how lots of villages lost inhabitants because all the young people moved to the cities, leaving behind the old, the poor with few job opportunities and weakening infrastructure. Meanwhile, in the West, especially the Southwest where I live today, village life is booming. Lots of small, pretty wealthy communities with excellent infrastructure. My little village of 900 people, for example, has several supermarkets and restaurants, banks, post office, shops like hairdressers or drugstores, specialized doctors, and decent public transportation that will get you to the nearest city in under 20 minutes. With stark contrasts like this, it's easy to imagine there's a little bit of resentment lingering on. Personal anecdote, I used to visit the book fair in Leipzig almost every year and usually went by train. And while Leipzig itself is a lovely city, the difference in landscape during the train ride always surprised me. Somewhere down the tracks after I crossed over to the former East, it always looked as if someone had turned down the saturation of the landscape outside. Maybe I had just bad luck with the weather, or maybe the train tracks just crossed the emptiest parts of the East, but the journey through the West was always green forests, bustling cities, yellow fields of rapeseed, golden fields of wheat, and then the East looked like muddy brown fields under a granite-colored sky. Though, this was quite a few years back and objectively, the East has some spectacular views. Hospitality and neighborhood help is much bigger in Eastern Germany and also Eastern Europe, at least Poland, Czech, and Slovakia, in my experience. In Western Germany, you generally should know people much better to beg them for certain kinds of favors. As an example, I once had an Eastern German neighbor, who after I barely knew him, already asked me if I could borrow him noodles and stuff. I did, because I didn't want to seem impolite, but I found it kind of rude of him to even ask. But the better I got to know him, I've learned that he was a really friendly guy, who would do the same for me and much more. For example, when I had to go to the train station, he often offered me a ride even though he didn't even need to go anywhere. Great guy, we became really good friends. Also, Eastern German women are way more direct if they find you attractive in my experience. I once did a tour of Germany. We played about 25 music shows all over the country. The eastern part gave us places to sleep, food, and liked staying up late with us to talk. They all knew a Slavic language. As an audience they were loose, loud, fun, and loved to party, but were also very worldly and smart. The western side was full of stiff crowds, but they were wealthier. They were a bit more jovial once they had a beer or two and were extremely formal and polite. They were more integrated with American culture. They preferred to sit for shows and shook my hand a lot. I was only born a few months prior to the fall of the Berlin Wall, so I can't really talk about the difference between then and now, but some demographic differences are still quite visible. Young people tend to leave the East, especially women. This is more a problem of the rural areas, but applies to the larger cities as well. There are less jobs and even less well-paid business functions. Of all the CEOs in Germany, only a handful are from Eastern Germany. People in the West have, on average, more money, but this is due to the fact that there are lots of people with third-generation inheritance in Western Germany, whereas in the East there is no generational wealth such as this. Of course there are lots of people in the West who don't inherit large sums of money, but their percentage of population in the East is substantially higher. I might add that Berlin is a general exception to ask of these statistics for plenty of reasons which I won't discuss now since it would lead to a wild different discussion. Culturally, people from the East put more importance on their field of work as part of their personality than in the West. This might be due to the GDR being a workers' republic where each person's identities was based on their work. Unemployment is a far higher problem in the East psychologically. The most striking difference might be that East Germans are well aware of the reunification as for the huge impact it had and has on their lives, whereas for Westerners there was not that much change. I mean, I can now begin with going through another state, but that's about it. When somebody mentions the town of Frankfurt, only Easterners ask which one. It's currently 5:30 a.m. in Germany. You might have more luck if you repost in a couple of hours.